All right, let's settle down. Let's settle down and get our guest speaker up here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble in the jungle. She is an amazing trainer. She's Regional Vice President Platinum. We can't wait to hear what she got to say today. She hails from north of Sacramento, California. She's a business owner. Her husband and her have several businesses. She takes care of father. She's also doing community work in the community as well. She has a daughter in college right now. Without further ado, can we give a warm welcome to Miss Keri Roeder?
Again, thank you for the invitation to be a part of this call, Mr. Thomas. And yeah, I'm just super, super excited. I love seeing so many faces because, again, I feel like I am not talking to myself. So thank you for those of you who have your cameras on. I know some of you can't. That's cool too. Good to listen in, even if you can't be heard, because I know some of you are at your GOB, which is just fine, right? That's might be part of why you're here, is to figure out how to get out of that. So for those of you who are kind of newer to the Mr. Al Thomas team, or maybe you just jumping on this for one of the first times, I try to articulate this as accurately as I can every chance I get, that Mr. Al Thomas is not just one of the most successful people in ACN. Like, yes, one of the most successful people in ACN, but he's actually one of the most successful people in direct sales globally. So the idea that we have such intimate access to him is ridiculous. And the fact that he has multiple 3 billion with a B, billionaire mentors and multiple millionaire mentors is absolutely amazing. So, it's interesting how I always say that instead of taking him for granted, we should use him as a tool, right? We should absolutely be accessing him the best that we can, and using all the incredible coaching that he gives us, so that when we do the work consistently over a long enough period of time, eventually we can be as successful as Mr. Thomas and Miss Renata Krumer. So I appreciate being on the call. So last week, yes, it was about tracking your business and getting organized. And some of you who were in Tahoe, we were all giggling about my office supply fetish, right? But however you need to get organized, okay? Because tracking your business is really helps you understand, like I talked about last week, what you are doing and what you're not doing. And I think for some of you, that reality is going to hit, that maybe you're not doing ACN as much as you think you are doing ACN, because you're thinking about doing ACN, which in your mind means you're doing ACN, okay? Income generating activities, right? We do very, very few simple things. We get customers and we get other people who get customers, okay? We do go to events because events equip you with what you need. Like, so these leadership calls equip you with what you need to do to then take action, but it's the actual action that we take in order to generate the success it is that we look for. So being able to track your, which is why Mr. Thomas has every morning, right? Who got leads, who got customers, who got IBOs, who's registered, who's doing presentations, who's registered. So that's tracking your business. And so last week I said that one of my new IBOs has put me in front of maybe 15 people and feels like, that person has made a lot of progress, but asked me, what does it take, right? And so interesting, because I believe in God, angels, universe, whatever. Right after I was asked that question, I was looking for a file in my file folders, and I came across this one, and it says invite list. And I was like, weird. I pulled it out. It's my original invite list from when I very first got started. Okay. So today and tomorrow, I'm going to share with you my journey, because it's my story, but I want you to listen to my story for the key elements of what it takes, okay, to get a good jump start. Now, some of you have been on in ACN for a minute, and you've heard me say this before. Years ago, Mr. Gray Provenzano gave me a magical little vial of start over dust. Okay. And so if that is what you need, then I will magically sprinkle some of that start over dust onto you because it has been sprinkled onto me multiple times in my 14 years of building this. Okay. So there's multiple stages of what I want to talk with you all about while I have you for the rest of May on what does it take. Okay. So the first section of what I want to talk with you about on what does it take actually involves prior to me getting started. Okay. So this started in April 2010. Some of you have heard portions of this story, but I want you to listen again as a leader. Okay. What does it take to be successful? Okay. So April 2010, ACN was in a massive wave of momentum. Okay. Well, what ended up happening is two gentlemen saw ACN in April of 2010. They don't know each other. They've never met. They never will meet. Okay, so one gentleman was actually a vendor of mine. He used to embroider my shirts for my business. Okay, so his name is Jeff. So this guy named Jeff in Sacramento gets started. And what do we tell everybody, right? Make a list. Write out a list of everybody you know. Okay, so Jeff writes out, apparently, he told me this story later. Okay, apparently, Jeff starts to write out his list. And then we say, okay, the way we teach you, we want you to call people on your list and invite them to come to your home so that somebody can present on your behalf. Well, apparently, Jeff told me months later that when he got to my husband and I, Brad and Keri Roeder, he looked at our names and went, they survived 2007, 8, and 9. Here we are, 2010. They still own all 4 of their businesses. They kept their home. They still have their cars, right? He said to himself, they would never do this, and crossed our names off. Okay. So tip number 1, don't cross anybody's names off, okay? In the same exact window of time, a young man, or not young, but younger than me, man, his wife saw ACN. So his wife goes to a new hairdresser. Her daughter had accidentally cut her hair, not accidentally, had intentionally cut her hair with scissors. She's like, she panics. She finds the nearest hairdresser that has time to fix the hairstyle, right? So she's there, and the hairdresser, who she didn't know, the hairdresser said, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom? What does your husband do? Oh, he's in law enforcement. How many kids do you have? 4, all under the age of, so Mackenzie was 5, so all 7 and under, 4 kids ages 7 and under, okay? So the hairdresser, not prejudging, says, are you open to opportunity? Well, this woman named Julie says, yeah. So Julie takes a look at ACN and goes, I love it. I want to do it. However, I need my husband's permission. How many of you heard that, right? I need my husband's permission. So the leaders who are presenting ACN to her know very well that the green apples, you don't walk away from them, okay? But you don't devote all of your time to stalking them, you guys. You're looking for the red apples. You're looking to run with the red apples, but don't discard the green apples, because the green apples are the ones who know the red apples, okay? So here you have this green apple. It took Julie shared it with her husband, okay? It took that man, his name is Michael, 4 times to see ACN to make a decision to get started. How many of you walk away when somebody sees it once and says, I need my husband's permission, or I don't know, it's not for me, or I don't have time, or whatever their reasons are, right? 4 times it took for Michael to make a decision to get started. So he gets started. They say, make a list of everybody you know, right? So he starts calling everybody, and he gets to cousin Keri, right? It's my cousin. And I have a really big Filipino family, okay? And so he starts calling everybody knows. Eventually gets to me, and he's like, oh my God, 4 businesses? Like, they didn't lose their home. They sold their cars. She's going to kill this thing. Who do you think was right? Jeff, who crossed my husband and my name off, shame on him, rude, okay? Or cousin Michael. So both of them prejudged us. Both of them prejudged us. They prejudged us in the wrong, one in the wrong direction, one in the right direction, right? Cousin Michael knew that we were successful, knew that we survived the downturn in the economy. What he didn't know was that I was crying myself to sleep at night because my husband and my daughter didn't have any time together. And I wanted to fix that. Okay. So he gets started. Okay. So he starts to make the phone calls. This is where coachability comes in. And anybody who've ever seen me train on recruiting, my one and only phrase I coined in ACN, I stole all the rest, is if you don't want this to be weird, don't be weird. Here's why I came up with that saying. So it was a Wednesday night. My daughter was 4. My husband and I are both working 7 days a week to keep our corporation going with those 4 businesses. And my husband had been trying to like nail me down, right? 2007 came, everybody panicked. He's like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Like, you need to go on a budget. And I'm like, dude, you got a year out on the calendar. We're fine. Get out of my office. That's a bad word in our household. Budget. That's a word we don't use. Okay. 2008 comes down, and he comes in my office and he's like, Keri, seriously, like the world's falling apart. I go, I know, I'm on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Like, I see what's happening. I go, but you have 9 months out on the calendar. Everybody else is shutting down. Get out of my office. That's a nasty word, right? 2009, he comes in. I'm like, dude, you got 6 months on the calendar. 2010, he comes in. He goes, babe, there's 3 months on the calendar. You and I both know we cannot crack our nut at 30 grand a month fixed costs before paying for everything else without having something different. He goes like, we need to start a 5th business. I don't care if we sell pillows. We need to start a new business, another business. And I'm like, what? So it's a Wednesday night, and he sits me down. He brought our daughter to my parents, so no distractions. And he sits me down at our little kitchen table, and he goes, listen, we need to start a 5th business. And I was like, dude, you're high. I don't know where you're going to find the time. We are both working 7 days a week. You don't have time with Mackenzie. So I'm like getting super emotional in all this, right? And he's like, babe, that's my point. I don't have any time with our daughter. We're both working 7 days a week. Something has to change. We need to figure out what 5th business to start. Okay. And I'm like, so again, I believe in my angels. So I start asking my angels to make him stop talking. Okay. So he's talking, and his lips, that whole Charlie Brown. So his lips are moving. I don't know what he was saying about pillows, whatever. But I'm asking my angels to make him stop talking. And literally my phone rings. And I was like, oh my God, it's Michael. Like my cousin's younger than me. Okay. And he has 4 kids, under the age of 7. I'm like, oh my God, Michael never calls. I hope my auntie's okay. I have to take this because I want him to stop talking. So, hey babe, what's going on? Right. And my cousin and I are having a normal cousin conversation. I'm like, is everything okay? Is auntie okay? Are the kids okay? And he's like, yeah, everybody's good, da, 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 Jack. So he starts to fill me in on my auntie and all this stuff. He's like, how's Mac? And that's what we called her back then. How's Mac? I'm like, oh, she's good, blah, blah. Dee. And so we go from this normal cousin conversation. I'm sitting across from my husband who's irritated with me that I took a phone call. And all of a sudden he goes, Keri, I really respect you and Brad. And I went, is that still Michael? That's weird, right? Okay. And so he's just being weird. I don't even know what he was saying. And I was like, hey, listen, love, I'm so sorry. I got to let you go. Can I call you back later? Brad and I are actually talking about business. We're trying to figure out another business to start or buy. So, babe, I got to call you back later. Okay, love you. Bye. Hugs, auntie. And he got the phone, and my husband goes, what was that? I go, I don't know. It was weird, right? So we finish our conversation. I'm mad. I'm like, So the conversation's over. Well, the next night, my mom calls me and says, hey, Sunday night, 1 o'clock, come to my house. Auntie Barbara, Michael's mom, Auntie Barbara called. She's coming up from the Bay Area to introduce us to some successful women and show us a business. I go, oh, that's weird. I go, Michael called me yesterday. What's it about? She goes, I don't know. She goes, your auntie just said get all the kids together, which is me and my siblings. She just said, get all the kids together. We're coming up to your house Sunday at 1. And I was like, oh, I go, well, but mom, I can't be there. Duh. I go, work 7 days a week. I go, that's, my manager's day off. I said, I can't leave. You have my kid. I can't leave. She was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So Sunday rolls around and it's 1 o'clock. And of course, I'm curious as all get up. Okay. And so one day, Sunday at 1, I'm watching the clock. It's like 3 o'clock. And I finally call the house. This is back when they had landlines, right? So I call the house, and my brother-in-law, who's an entrepreneur, answers the phone. And I'm like, hey, what's it about? And he goes, He goes, hey, listen, I can't describe it. We're all getting started. Here's your mom. Okay. So my mom gets on the phone and I was like, what's it about? She goes, I can't describe it, but we're all getting started. But I can't describe it to you. And whatever else she said. And I got, okay, so a little insight on Keri before personal development. I am a brat, or I was a brat. I probably still am a brat, but I was a brat. I'm the youngest of three, right? I've always felt left out, all that crap, right? From being the youngest. So I was like, fine, you're not going to tell me what it is, and I'm not going to do it with you. I'll be right there to pick up my kid, right? So I just close my shop. I go down my parents' driveway and I see all these cars. And I'm like, hey, heck is going on here? I thought it was just my family. So I pull in. My parents have a big, long driveway, big house thing. Go down the driveway. I walk in, and obviously the PBR, which I didn't know what it was over. Everybody's milling around. And so I walk in and I see my auntie, and I'm like, huh, I haven't seen her in a while. I'm 19. My cousin, Michael, and his wife, Julie, right? Like, hi. And they're like, hey, we want to introduce you to this, this successful woman. And I was like, yeah, because again, I was being a brat. And I was all, okay, right. So they're like, this is Mrs. Renee Wagner. So for those of you who know her, right? And I'm on, hi, nice to meet you. I was so rude. Oh my God, my parents raised me better than this, but I was so rude because nobody would tell me what it was. And I was throwing a fit. Okay. So I swoop up my kid and I leave. So all week I'm asking people and they won't describe it to me. You have to see it for yourself. So they did not go to training, but they were using all the right language that Mrs. Renee Wagner did in the set. Okay. And so weekend number 2 goes down and I go to pick up my kid after I close my shop. And again, all these cars. I'm like, what is going on here? So I go in and hi. Hey, meet Mrs. Wagner. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so I swoop up my kid and I leave. Third Sunday, I go down the driveway. Okay. Again, nobody's driving to me. So I go in there and I don't even say hi to Mrs. Wagner. I'm like, where's my kid? Right. And so everybody's like, sit down and see it. I'm like, nope. And so my sister, the way my parents built their house is their living room kitchen is, huge, right? And it's that open concept, right? So, and those of you who know me, I have a lot of energy. Okay. Well, you put 2 sisters together, who we have a lot of energy. Okay. So my sister, I'm in the kitchen part, right? And by the island, and my sister kind of pushes me up against the island. She gets in my face and she was like, quietly, she goes, sit down and see the information. I go, no. She gets closer to me, sit down and see the information. I go, no. She's like, literally in my face, sit down, right? And I'm like, no, right? And so the quieter we got, the bigger our energy got, right? And you could see the room go, oh shit. Okay, sorry. But she literally nose to nose says to me, I'll bleep out the profanity, says to me, sit down and see the information. And I go, no. And she said to me, you don't know what you're saying no to. And I went, fine. And I pushed her to the side and I said, Michael, can I see your stupid little video? And everybody went, oh crap. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up today's part of today's training by telling you that when I went and sat on the couch, it was me, my cousin Michael, Mrs. Wagner, the television, and everybody else was behind us, probably freaking out. And as I was watching this stupid little video, right, I was sitting there, my arms were crossed, my legs were crossed, my attitude was crossed. I was like, I'm not doing this because none of you would have shared this with me early if you guys are all doing this, right? Because I'm a friggin' brat. So the video starts. I'm like, it's stupid. I can't believe I'm wasting my time. So all of a sudden, there's this guy jogging on the beach. I didn't know his name at the time, but it was Mr. Jeff Street. Okay, became one of my main mentors and one of my closest friends. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't jog, but I want to jog on the beach. Okay. And then the next screen was a man jogging on a treadmill. Didn't know his name. It's Matthew LaMontagne, right? And I was like, oh, I want time to jog on a treadmill. Those 2 scenes from watching the video is why I got started in ACN. I didn't know what it cost. I didn't know what the revenue looked like. All I knew is that those 2 men were living a lifestyle that I was not able to live because I was living the American dream, having 4 businesses, right? So so next week, I'm going to tell you now kind of how I transitioned and shifted and how we hit regional vice president in 3.5 years. Because ultimately, the message I want you to hear today is this. Somebody, the hairdresser, recruited somebody they didn't know. Okay. My cousin Michael had to see it 4 times before deciding. Jeff prejudged us in a bad way and crossed our names off. Cousin Michael prejudged us in a good way and made that phone call. However, he was weird. So if you're getting odd responses, you might want to look at what it is you're saying, what it is you're doing, and all that, because I was looking for a 5th business, right? And then my family did such a good job of not giving me the details that I got to see ACN for myself. I didn't judge ACN through the lens of how I see everybody else. I saw ACN in the true business format that it is. And as a business owner, I got to decide for myself. So persistency is really one. Don't prejudge. If you do, prejudge in a good way. Make those phone calls, okay? Don't cross them off. Star them, circle them, call them first, okay? But also be persistent. When somebody says no, but they haven't seen the opportunity or met one of your leaders or met Mr. Thomas, that means they don't know what they're saying no to. Okay, so next week I will continue this storytelling as to kind of the start of my journey in ACN 14 years and a week or 14 years and 9 days ago. But you guys, so really that's what I wanted to share is that the excitement of what we have our hands on is absolutely tremendous. I hope my storytelling today is helpful. Next week, I'm going to go over my folder that I found and what it takes when you first get started. And then I'll wrap up my month with kind of talking about what does it take today. What does Mr. Thomas do? What does Mrs. Renata Krumer do in order to continue to have the success they have and the lifestyles in which we are all striving for? So I'm going to turn this call back to you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, as always, for allowing me to be a part of the journey of everybody's success and challenges here, right? And again, I tell you this, when I'm talking to you, I see all your handsome faces, but I also see me. So I'm also talking to me. So I'm going to turn this call back to you, our mentor, our incredible leader, top producing senior vice president, Mr. Al Thomas.